Morning Year 11, so we're moving back onto our English language revision today. So to start off with, a quick recap of what we looked at last week. So give yourself 5 minutes to have a go at these questions in your book. So what can you remember about paper 1 question 3? How many marks is it worth, and which 3 key sections will you need to look at for this question? So 5 minutes to answer these questions, then move on to the next slide so you can listen to the answers. Okay, so you should have given yourself 5 minutes to have a go at these questions. So what can you remember about paper 1 question 3 then? So this question asks you about structure. It wants you to think about how the text interests you and how it makes you want to read on. It is worth 8 marks, and you should write 3 PEE paragraphs, one focusing on the beginning of the text, the second section focusing on the middle, and then the final paragraph thinking about the end. Now remember, there's some key terms that we're also looking for, so where the writer directs your focus, how they shift your focus, and whether it is a cliffhanger or a resolution. We have done quite a lot on question 3 now, so I'm hoping that you're feeling quite confident with that one. So in today's lesson, we're going to move on to question 4. So I just wanted to recap what we did last language lesson to get you back into that language mindset. So paper 1 question 4 was one of the last things that we looked at before we went into lockdown and before you sat your mocks, okay? Now in your mocks, some of you did quite well on this question, some of you avoided it like the plague. So we are going to revisit it and just have a think about what the important parts of the question are, and then how we can make your answers really secure and make you feel really confident. But my first 2 questions are: how many marks are available for question 4? Can you remember? And how long should you spend answering it? So again, give yourself 5 minutes to have a go at answering these questions. We have looked at it before, so it shouldn't be too difficult. Okay then, so obviously I've just asked you to think about how many marks question 4 was worth, and also how long you should spend on it. So the basics are: this question is about you evaluating a text critically. So it's asking you to think about a certain opinion based on the text. To do that, you will be told which lines of the extract to concentrate on. You will be given a statement about this part of the extract. You will then be asked to what extent you agree with this statement, and you know that you will agree with that statement, as I've said on many occasions, okay? And you must then find some quotations to help you prove that statement about the question. And you should spend 23 minutes answering this question. So we give you 3 minutes to have a think about which quotations you're going to use, and then 20 minutes to answer the question. It is worth 20 marks, which, if you think about it, each paper is worth 80. Question 5 is worth 40 of those marks. So question 4 holds half of the marks on the reading section. So you've already done 3 questions that equate to 20 marks. This one can potentially get you 20. On average, you need around about 50% on each paper to get a grade 4. So that means you need to get at least 10 out of 20 on this question to be able to hit that grade 4 criteria overall. So it's a really, really important question, and actually it's a really easy question to get lots of marks on, okay? So what I thought would be really useful this lesson is spending some time having a look at the question layout and thinking about what is the most important part of the question, and then how that feeds into what you would need to look for in the extract, okay? So what I've done is I've put the question on, and then I've put 2 questions on for that 1 question, okay? So basically what I want you to do is I want you to read the question, and I want you to think about what is the most important part of this question. So what should you be focusing on? And then what evidence will you need to find in the text to support this opinion, okay? And that should take you about 10 minutes, okay, to have a think about that. Then what I'm going to do on the next slide is explain to you what the most important part is, what you'd need to find, okay? And then hopefully we're going to do that on a couple more examples just to get you used to looking for the important part of the question and thinking about how you would answer it. Okay then, so you should have given yourself 5 to 10 minutes to have a go at these questions. So my question was, what is the most important part of this question, okay? Now I'm hoping from our previous conversations you remember that the statement is the most important part. So this here is the most important part of the question, okay? And the reason for that is because that is the focus of your whole answer, okay? Whatever that statement says is whatever you've got to agree or disagree with. It's whatever you have got to find in the text. So this one says, this part of the text explaining what Hale is doing shows how nervous and unsafe he feels. It reminds me of the first line. Now, we actually answered this question in class, so this one should be really easy. So in terms of what it's asking you to do, well, it's asking you to find examples of where it shows that Hale feels nervous or unsafe. Okay, it's also asking you to think about the first line, and we know that the first line says that he thinks he's going to get murdered that day. Okay, so all of your ideas need to be linked back to these three things. So they need to be quotations that show something about nervousness, something about feeling unsafe, or something about murder. Okay, so the question is really, really important for this part of the exam. You really have to think hard about what it's asking you to look for. Okay, so on the next slide, there's another example. I want you to do exactly the same as you've just done with this one. Now, I appreciate, obviously, some of you won't be able to print this out, so I'd like you to write the question into your book and then annotate it for me, please. So here's the next question. So again, give yourself 5 to 10 minutes on this, pause me. So you need to think about what is the most important part of the question and what would you need to find in terms of evidence to kind of support this statement. Okay, so 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so you should have given yourself 5 to 10 minutes on this question as well. So what is the most important part of the question? Again, it's this statement, okay? So this part of the story set in the hat shop shows that the red-haired girl has many advantages in life. I think Rosabelle is right to be angry, okay? So again, that is the most important part of the question. That is the statement. So in terms of evidence then, so when we are looking back through our text, what would we need to find? Well, we'd need to find evidence that Rosabelle is angry, okay? Because that's what it's stating. We might also look for information that shows us that the red-haired girl has many advantages, okay? Because it's asking us to essentially say what those advantages are and why that might make Rosabelle feel angry, okay? So even without reading the text, even without knowing anything about the source, we're able to think about what we would need to find, okay? So this is really straightforward. So there's 2 more examples that I'd like you to have a go at this lesson. I've done the same after each of them, so I've explained what I think and what should be written in your books, okay? And this is all we're going to do for this lesson, because I just really want you to know that the statement is the most important part of this question, and it's the whole focus, and it's actually really easy to know what you need to be looking for. So here's the next question. So again, give yourself 5 to 10 minutes on this, pause me. So you need to think about what is the most important part of the question and what would you need to find in terms of evidence to kind of support this statement. Okay, so 5 to 10 minutes. Okay then, so again, it should be nice and straightforward. So you should have copied this question into your book, you should have highlighted the statement, and then you should have written down what you think you would need to find in the text, okay? So the statement for this one says, this part of the story where Mr. Fisher is marking homework shows Tibbet's story is better than Mr. Fisher expected and his reaction is extreme, okay? So the first thing it's asking us to think about is that he thinks the work is better than he expected. So we need to find quotations that are going to show that it is better than what he expected, okay? The second part says that his reaction is extreme. So then we might also want to look for some quotations that show that his reaction is extreme, okay? And that means that it's over the top. It's not how we would expect a teacher to react when they're marking your work, okay? So we've got the statement again. We already know what we need to look for. So if you then had the extract, it should be really easy for you to pick out quotations. So here's the next question. So again, give yourself 5 to 10 minutes. So this is the final one for you to have a go at this lesson. I know it's been really repetitive, but sometimes with tasks like this, it's just about getting into that mindset. So when you see this question, look to the statement, think about what it's asking you, and that should make answering this question really easy. So the statement for this one says that this part of the story, where Alice decides to continue digging for the object, is very mysterious and suggests her discovery might be life-changing. So in terms of what it's asking us to look for, it's asking us to look at if there's anything that makes us feel that this is mysterious. Okay, but they're also asking us to think about what might be life-changing about this discovery. So you would also need to find out any quotations that might suggest that it's life-changing. Okay. So what I'm hoping you can see is that actually question 4 is worth 20 marks, but it gives you a huge amount of help in what it's actually asking you to look for. And all you've got to remain focused on is that statement. You've just got to keep in mind that that's what they're asking you to look at. That's what you need to be looking out for when you're analysing quotations. So that is the end of today's lesson. I hope that you've enjoyed it and I hope that you've taken something away from it. Make sure you've got all of these questions written into your book and all of this analysis written into your book, okay? And then next lesson we're going to have a look at moving on from this step and what we should do next.